let me just start telling you about my mom. She was fabulous, feisty, funny, and frustrating. She sadly died last year in January 2021, but this story is going to start in January of 2013 when I had a conversation with my mom and all of the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place and I knew that something was up. My sister-in-law was picking her up for hockey and we had the first conversation that looped with my mom telling me the same story within a 5-minute period, word for word. And I knew that something was up. This was a particularly stressful time in my mother's life. Her partner, my stepfather, was extremely ill, chronically ill, and she was the primary caregiver. He had been suffering lifelong with ulcerative colitis, had just had a colostomy. My mother was supposed to be caregiving, and she was losing it. I came in, started taking her to her doctor, and it became obvious that she was having cognitive decline. The healthcare professionals looked to everything other than cognitive decline. We tried to look at depression as a factor, stress as a factor, maybe vitamin deficiencies as a factor, a variety of things, but it became more and more obvious that my mom was suffering with cognitive decline. Her husband subsequently died and she was left on her own. I started looking, when I was doing my research in order to help her, I started seeing the huge list of risk factors involved in Alzheimer's and cognitive decline and different dementias as a whole. Interestingly, only about 5% or actually even less of Alzheimer's and dementia causes are familial or inherited. There are a litany of risk factors involved. Some modifiable, others not modifiable. The 3 non-modifiable risk factors are genetics, our age as we get older, our risk actually increases, and our sex. Females have a higher incidence of Alzheimer's than males do. So those are non-negotiables. However, there are 12 other risk factors that we can impact in our own life. Keeping in mind risk factors, just talking about risk factors, just because we have risk factors does not mean that we're getting a disease. Conversely, if we have none of these risk factors, does not mean that we are not getting a disease. But we are in fitness, we're interested in doing the best that we can, so why not cut the odds? When I looked at these risk factors, I was astounded because my mother checked far too many of those boxes. And I started thinking, what about me? Where do I fall? So what are those 12 risk factors that we can have something to do with? Number 1, our level of education. Now, don't be crazy. Just because we didn't go to university, that's not what it's all about. It's also about our joy of learning, our level of cognitive engagement. Do you like to learn new things? That kind of thing. Hearing loss. 3, traumatic brain injury. 4, hypertension or high blood pressure. 5, obesity and lack of physical health. 6, excessive alcohol use, meaning more than 14 drinks per week for women or 21 drinks for men. Depression, untreated depression. Smoking, social isolation, diabetes, a poor diet, and air pollution. That rounds out our top 12, and my mother was checking a lot of the boxes. The MMSE, or the Mini Memory State or Status Exam, is the #1 diagnostic tools that doctors use to diagnose Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, or a variety of Parkinson's even, and that was developed in 1997, really to streamline the process so that everyone was on an even playing field. One doctor would be able to tell another doctor about where you scored, and it is out of a score of 30. Fun fact, or maybe not so fun, a lot of retirement homes actually decide whether you can be admitted depending upon your score. And one particular retirement home actually didn't allow my mom to come in because her score was under 15. The MMSE looks for 4 different areas: short-term recall, orientation, do you know where you are, as well as language and problem solving. So we thought it'd be interesting if I did an MMSE, and Victoria is going to administer that to me right now. Welcome. Thank you. Have a seat. Thank you.
So what is today's date?
August 8th,
Correct. What is today's year?
2022.
What is the month?
August.
What day is it?
Monday.
Can you tell me what season it is?
It's summer because it's hot.
It is hot. Can you tell me where we are?
at home.
And what city are we in?
Unionville, Markham,
And what province is that in?
Ontario, Canada. I
Last
have to
one.
tell you, when I did this with my mom, the hardest thing was what was the date.
Really?
I never knew what the date
I
was.
don't either. So I have ball, flag, tree.
Ball, flag, tree.
Perfect score. I'm gonna ask you first to count backwards, but by multiples of 7. So the first number starts at 100, and you're gonna work backwards from that, so the next one would be
93.
correct.
Okay.
And continue.
86.
Yeah.
79.
Wow,
72.
correct.
65.
Perfect.
I actually do that when I try to go to sleep at night.
Okay, so you're a seasoned vet. So I'm gonna ask you to spell the word world backwards.
DLROW.
Perfect. All right, so remember those 3 words that I gave you. Can you tell me what they were?
Ball, flag, tree.
Perfect.
I'm getting nervous.
Yeah. So I'm gonna show you a couple objects. I just want you to tell me what they are. Okay, so this is the first one. Can you tell me what this is?
Watch. Nice one too.
Yeah, it's very nice. Tiffany's. Perfect. And then second,
Pencil.
great. I'm gonna get you to repeat this phrase after me. No ifs, ands, or buts.
No ifs, ands, or buts.
I want you to take it with your dominant hand. I want you to fold it in half and put it on the floor. Perfect. I'm gonna show you something.
Scary.
I'm gonna show you something. I want you to read it and do exactly as it says. All right, let me show you guys first. Read it out loud.
Close your eyes.
Great, and she actually closed her eyes. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm giving you this sheet of paper. I want you to write a sentence, any sentence. Aw, guys, she said, I love my YouTube subscribers. And in beautiful cursive. This is the very last thing.
What happened to the clock?
There's no clock anymore. We got some pentagons instead.
They must have updated this because my mom, all the time, it was 10 to 11 you had to draw or 10 after 11. And it was always
Well, that's too
very
much.
mind-boggling.
I can't do that.
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you these 2 pentagons, and I want you to the best of your ability to copy them. Lovely. So you get full marks, and if you just want me to tally up your score.
Okay. So the scoring is actually, they do have a very finite scoring factor. And I think that 9, if I'm not mistaken, is the cutoff really for more than moderate dementia.
So what we have here is you have a perfect score, meaning that you are considered normal. It says 19 to 23 is borderline, so really it's 23 to 30 is normal.
Okay.
And it's below 19 that you're considered impaired by this test.
Okay.
So you pass with flying
You know,
colors.
It can
Congratulations.
actually be a scary thing. And I have to tell you that they administered this test to my mom repeatedly. We were there like every few months doing the same thing. And some days were a lot better than others, but it is, I think it was actually more stressful for me than it really was for her, because I don't really know that she knew that she did it before. Although we tried to keep my mom in her own home for as long as possible, by 2016, we had her here in this nursing home in Markham. The one great thing was it was only about 6 or 7 minutes away from my house. During the peak of COVID, nursing homes were being ravaged. Visitors were not allowed, and I had to come in the second window. Fortunately, my mom lived on the main floor, and I could come outside and I could talk to her on the phone. And that was our visiting. And you know what? Thank goodness that we had that. She didn't understand why. Why could I not come in? Why was I talking to her on the phone? None of that made sense. But right to the end, she knew me. And it's amazing the things that stick. And I'm so happy that I was one of those things that stuck. So of course, this was devastating for me and for my entire family. And it makes me think now, so what about my mom versus what about me? Let's go back to those risk factors for a second. My mom versus me. Let's start with smoking. My mom was a smoker, loved smoking. She did quit for a while in between, but she was a heavy smoker. Me, never smoked. Very high blood pressure. My mother suffered for years with high blood pressure. Mine is fine. Depression. She suffered from depression later in life, especially as my stepfather became more ill. She became more depressed. Social isolation. They moved from Toronto to a small town. She didn't have a vast circle of friends. And although we all came to visit, she felt very isolated. Again, not my situation. Her diet, poor. Once a year, my mom would go on the Scarsdale to try to lose 7 or 10 pounds. But generally speaking, her diet, high in saturated fat, processed foods, not the best. As well, sedentary lifestyle. Occasional walker, really no exercise. Again, vastly different from mine. The funny thing also about my mom was she really didn't like to try anything new. She didn't want to go anywhere. She didn't want to learn anything new. She was very set in her ways. She thought, I've already been there, I've already done that. You know, she never learned to drive a car. She didn't learn to ride a bike. A lot of things like that, very, very different from me. So I'm not feeling all kind of smug like, oh, hey, this is not definitely happening to me. We don't know. We don't know what's out there. It could, but I'm trying to cut the odds. Okay, what can you do? Number 1, be active. Get out there, walk, exercise. That is healthy for anybody. Limit your alcohol intake. Watch and have a healthy diet. The Mediterranean diet is always recommended, not only for an Alzheimer's risk, also for your blood pressure and your cholesterol. Treat depression if you're suffering from depression. Treat hearing loss if that's an issue. Socialize, get out there with people, chat it up. Quality of sleep, that is heavily linked these days in new research to potential Alzheimer's risk. If you can, try to avoid excessively high air pollution. There is a definite link there. Wear a helmet. Make sure your kids are wearing a helmet. Vital information there. A lot of those things we already do, and that's great because that's giving us at least a leg up. As well, there's a lot of new research that's going into Alzheimer's prevention, and generally dementia as a whole. There's musical therapy. They're talking about, there's research that if you start a musical instrument even as a child and you don't even continue it, that gets logged in your memory, and that's kind of amazing. There's new laughter therapy. How great is that? Not only spontaneous laughter when you're with somebody that's funny, but also simulated laughter or forced laughter. There's actually laughter yoga, and the laughter apparently is really good for our brains. There's a study out of Japan that people that don't laugh, that have really, really low laugh rates, less than 1 laugh a month, if you can imagine, have a generally higher morbidity on all levels of disease. Actually, that's like awful to think that you're only gonna laugh that much. So on top of that, there are intranasal sprays that they're coming up with that they're thinking may be able to shoot the vaccines and drugs into your brain more efficiently. So there are positive things on the horizon looking out to treat Alzheimer's because it is devastating. But let's just say that we've got to do everything that we can in order to stay healthy. So there are no guarantees that any of these things that we've talked about today are going to guarantee that we are not going to get dementia. But you know what? I can't even think of one of those things that are not a bad idea anyway, ensuring that we're going to have a healthier, happier, longer life. And that's what we're all aiming for. Thanks for being with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.